They say the people we love most are the ones we know best, their habits, their voices, the smallest movements in their faces. But what if one day you started to notice something wasn't quite the same? Tonight's story isn't about ghosts or monsters hiding under the bed. It's about something far more terrifying when the person sleeping beside you isn't who you think they are. This is the man who came home. I've always believed that love lives in the small things, the gestures that seem ordinary but mean everything when the world gets heavy. Daniel, my husband, worked as an attorney at a downtown firm. Long hours, late nights, a constant tightness around his eyes that never quite faded. He'd come home close to midnight, loosen his tie, press a tired kiss to my forehead, and collapse on the couch without a word. I used to wait for that sound, the click of the door, his brief exhale before the exhaustion set in. I hated it. Hated that he gave so much of himself to work and came home as a ghost of the man I married. That Valentine's week, I decided to remind us that we still existed beyond the routine. Nothing extravagant, no fancy dinner or weekend getaway. Just a letter, handwritten, something real. That night, I curled up with a blanket, a half glass of wine, and a pen that kept running out of ink. I wrote about how we met, how awkward we were, how our first date ended with him spilling coffee on his shirt. I wrote about the long nights we spent talking until dawn, the jokes that made no sense to anyone but us. By the time I finished, my fingers ached, but my heart felt light. I sealed the pink envelope with a kiss, smiling to myself. I thought about how he'd find it at work, maybe in between his endless meetings, and it would make him smile. A small thing, a reminder that love was still alive in the quiet spaces. The next morning, I stopped by Daniel's office before heading to work. The building was old polished marble and stale air. The receptionist told me to drop the envelope in the firm's private mailbox by the door. I did, feeling strangely giddy as I walked back to my car. That night, Daniel came home, like always tired but kind. We had dinner together. He told me about some client who refused to settle. He didn't mention the letter. I didn't bring it up either. I figured maybe he hadn't seen it yet. But the next morning, as I was waking up, I heard the soft clatter of mail hitting the floor. The usual bills flyers and a pink envelope. My heart skipped. He'd written back. Daniel wasn't the writing type, but maybe something about my letter had inspired him. I opened it carefully, still smiling. It was the same stationery I'd used, the same soft off-white paper, the same faint embossing around the edges, his handwriting. "I got your letter," it began. "Thank you, my love. It means more to me than you know." I felt a warmth rise in my chest until I read the next line. "I need you to listen carefully. This is important. I don't know who's been coming home to you every night, but it's not me." The words swam before my eyes. I blinked, rereading, as if I'd somehow misunderstood. "I haven't left the office in months. Something is pretending to be me." I dropped the letter. For a long moment, I couldn't move. My skin felt too tight, my breath shallow. Then I laughed. A weak, trembling laugh. It had to be a prank. Maybe one of his coworkers found my letter and decided to mess with me. Maybe even Daniel himself. A weird joke. But deep down beneath every rational thought, something cold began to crawl up my spine. I tucked the letter into my purse before Daniel woke up. When he walked into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from his eyes, everything in me screamed to look closer. "Morning," he murmured, kissing my temple. Morning, I whispered. I turned on the gas stove, twisting the old knob until the familiar hiss filled the air. The smell of gas was sharp, and I struck the match. For just a second, a fraction of a moment, Daniel flinched. It wasn't subtle. His whole body jerked his shoulders, tensed eyes flicking toward the flame like it burned more than air. Then he smiled quick and easy. Just spaced out, he said. But I saw it. The fear, the instant instinctive recoil from the fire. Later, over breakfast, I tried to sound casual. Did you get my letter yesterday? He froze just for a heartbeat before answering. Yeah, that was really sweet. What was your favorite part? I asked lightly. He sipped his coffee. All of it. He hadn't read it. I knew it then. That night, sitting beside him on the couch, I couldn't stop staring. His laugh was the same. His voice was the same. But there was something off. A stillness in his movements, like he was remembering how to be human. I asked, do you remember when we first met? He blinked, caught off guard. College, right? Second year. He smiled too quickly. June 28th. My stomach dropped. The real Daniel had the date tattooed on his forearm, June 12th. That was when I knew. Whatever was sitting next to me wasn't my husband. The next morning, I did everything the same. Coffee, a kiss on the cheek, a smile. I told him I had a long day ahead, and he told me to drive safe. Once I was out of sight, I took a different turn. Not toward work, but toward his office. I rehearsed excuses in my head. Maybe I'd see him at his desk and laugh at myself for being paranoid. Maybe the letter was just some mix-up. When I walked in, the receptionist looked at me strangely. I'm here to see my husband, I said. Her brow furrowed. Your husband's name, Daniel Harper. Her face softened, the kind of expression people give before saying something awful. Oh, sweetheart. No one's seen Daniel in weeks. It felt like the floor gave out beneath me. What? She hesitated. His office is still here, but we thought he just quit. She led me down the hallway. Every step felt heavier. At the end of the corridor, she opened a small storage room. We kept his things, just in case. Inside, untouched, was Daniel's world, frozen in time. His coat hung neatly, his work bag slumped against a chair. A stack of unopened mail sat on the desk. And in the center of that desk was another letter, my name written on it. My hand shook as I unfolded it. If you're reading this, I'm still here. Something took my place. It knows everything I know, but it's not me. I don't know how long I can hold on. It's afraid of fire. I felt my knees give out. But even through the blur of panic, something inside me hardened. It wasn't about understanding anymore. It was about survival. I folded the letter, slid it into my pocket, and walked out of that office, knowing exactly what I had to do. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked normal. Too normal. The porch light glowed softly, the curtains drawn like always. Inside, he was waiting. He stood in the living room, still almost polite. His head tilted, that same easy smile painted across his face. Where have you been? He asked, Daniel's voice smooth as silk. Nowhere important, I said. He watched me for a moment, eyes too focused, too still. Then he nodded. Dinner soon. Sure. I walked past him into the kitchen, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. My hand shook as I reached for the whiskey bottle on the counter. What are you doing? He asked, tone soft but sharp underneath. Just cleaning up. He took a step forward, and I could feel it, the weight of his stare pressing against my back. I turned, meeting his eyes. You're not him. The smile twitched. Of course I am. You flinched at the fire. He said nothing. I read his letter. His jaw tightened. The air between us shifted something cold and hungry, rising from behind those eyes. I twisted the cap off the whiskey and poured it across the floor. The scent filled the air sharp and intoxicating. Stop, he said quietly. But I didn't. He moved closer, the shape of him flickering in the light, like his body wasn't holding together properly. Please, he whispered. You don't want to do that. I lit the lighter. For a moment, his face was illuminated, and I saw it. The thing beneath the skin, the cracks, the shifting lines, the faces pressing against the surface like trapped air. I dropped the flame. Fire exploded across the room, roaring to life, devouring everything it touched. The heat slammed into me, and over the roar, I heard it scream. Not Daniel's scream. Something older. Something wrong. Its body convulsed, melting and twisting. Blackened limbs tore free, writhing like smoke. Its voice splintered into hundreds of broken sounds. I ran. The walls cracked, the ceiling caved. The front door was only a few steps away. Behind me, that thing howled a sound that didn't belong in this world. I threw myself outside as the house collapsed behind me, and still through the inferno, it screamed my name. For a long time, I couldn't move. The world was nothing but heat and ash. My home, our home, was gone. Then I heard it, a sound through the flames, movement. A figure stumbled forward, collapsing onto the pavement. Daniel. His clothes were burned, his skin blackened in places, but his eyes were his. Warm, human, real. He tried to speak, his voice rough. College, first year. Sarah introduced us. I felt my knees buckle. He remembered. The real Daniel remembered. I pulled him close, sobbing into the crook of his neck. His arms were weak, but they wrapped around me anyway. They said later it was a miracle he survived. Smoke inhalation, minor burns, nothing worse. I stayed by his side in the hospital, my hand always in his. Sometimes I'd squeeze just to make sure he was still there, and every time he'd squeeze back. The first night he opened his eyes fully, he smiled at me. "You look terrible," he rasped. "So do you?" I said, laughing through the tears. He laughed too, but as he did, I caught it just for a second in the reflection of his eyes. The faintest flicker, like something still burning deep inside. Love makes us blind. They say blind to the small things, the quiet wrongness that hides behind familiar eyes. But sometimes it's not blindness at all. Sometimes we just don't want to see what's staring back at us. If you ever find yourself wondering whether the person you love is really them, maybe it's better not to know. Thank you for listening. And remember, not every story ends when the fire goes out.